Hey, we're here with Rich Cummings again. The last few episodes we talked about Super Trike and how he helped with Barefoot, with Fred Schaefer, and then with some of your other creations. And we left the last episode talking about Mad Max. Now tell us how, you eventually turned that into a truck called Deuces Wild. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was a 32 Ford, and my son and I had made tooling to make 32 Ford bodies, so I figured logical to put one of them on there. There was quite a bit of a change because there's a big difference where you set relative to the center of the wheelbase in an old truck versus a new truck. But we got all that changed. It changed the balance of the truck a little bit. Along the way, we picked up a little bit of horsepower, and of course that always made it a lot more fun. Did a lot of shows, and it held its own very nicely. 517-inch Hemi, and so we ran that. The strange thing about that truck is, in freestyle, if you used a technique where you'd roll into the car slow and then hammer it, and then as soon as your foot hit the floor, you'd be at an angle like this, and you'd hit second gear, and it would launch, and you could drive it the full length of the cars if you wanted to, nose up. If you was in a race or doing something else, you didn't time it that way, and it would stay pretty flat. But we had a lot of fun with that truck, and everything was changing in the shows, and I figured, this is not as much fun as it used to be. I was going to a show. This was a checkered flag promotion show with Ed, and Aaron, matter of fact, Aaron and I was going. We get just about Joliet, and all of a sudden the temperature gauge on the truck starts to go up. Just dead in the middle of the winter. The shaft that drove the water pump quit. So we pull into a truck garage, and they say, we can get to it Tuesday. I usually left a day early for a show, and I did that time. And they said, no, if you want to fix it yourself out in the parking lot, we got parts you need. It was down to 0 that night. I'm out working on that thing, trying to change that water pump. We get it changed. We get into the show about an hour before showtime. Well, monster truck guys, you're there scrambling, and I mean, everybody is in there helping you because they're the greatest guys in the world. If you got a problem, they're Johnny on the spot to help you out. So we got the truck back together, got it running, got through the show. We get back home. The next show is in Fayetteville. They had an ice storm go through Ohio. I wanted to leave on Wednesday. The roads were ice, you couldn't do it. So I had to leave on Thursday for a Friday show. I couldn't go down the west side of Ohio. I had to go down the west side instead of the east side, so it added 4 hours of the trip. I get in there tired, strung out, and it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I got to put the truck together and race. So we do that. We go up and do Salisbury, Maryland, and it's like, I'm getting tired of doing this stuff. I figured, so I ran an ad and sold it to a guy, Chester Arthur, I believe it was, from Florida. And he come up and he bought the truck lock, stock, and barrel. Okay. And so at that point in time, I figured, here's your sign. Sometimes you have to listen to those things. Yeah. Well, and that's where,
a lot of the younger fans and stuff don't really realize how hard it was back in the day. I mean, we did everything. I mean, you built it, you designed it, you had to haul it, you had to do everything. And nowadays, everything's pretty much store-bought. You can buy every part you need now to build a monster truck. And then there's such nice haulers out there, and anybody will loan you the money for a hauler now. Where back in the day, you go to the banker and say, hey, I want to buy this hauler rig, or I want to build a motorhome hauler, or whatever, and they'd look at you like, what is wrong with you? We ain't giving you no money. So the world has really changed in the monster truck world. And I had the same instances. A lot of times breaking down on the highway, and you're out there in the middle of a snowstorm or an ice storm. Or I remember laying on a bridge someplace on the East Coast at midnight one night in a pouring down rainstorm, and my truck broke down on a bridge. And I remember other trucks going by me splashing me with water while I'm underneath the hauler trying to fix it. It gets old.
Yeah.
So tell us, so you pretty much gave all that up. Tell us what you're doing now, because this guy's always been inventing, creating stuff, always building cool stuff. So tell us about some of your projects now.
Well, I got into building street rods, sort of. A guy that I'd known for a long, long time, he stopped in one day and he said, I want you building a rat rod. What are you on? You know, I'd never heard the term before. And I don't know what you're talking about. Well, he brings me a book and it's got, okay, now everybody knows what a rat rod is, you know, an old rusty thing or whatever it might be. And he said, that's what I want. And his wife is saying, you're crazy, justifiably so. But he said, you know, you're crazy for something like that. You got this really, really nice 56 Dodge pickup truck and, you know, 440 in it. It's a cool truck. And he said, I'll make you a deal. We'll deal some on that truck and you're going to build me this rat rod. And I said, I really, really hesitate doing this, but I got this building out there and I went out and I had this 1932 body there. And I mean, it had been sitting outdoors probably for the last 50 years in a field in Kansas. There was no roof, no floor. Everything that it took on the door was gone. No door latches, no nothing. And he said, you know, okay, this is what I want. I want windows, maybe. Got to have a windshield. His wife said it had to be flat black. She was afraid they was going to laugh at her. She showed up with this car that was really, really ugly. So he said, you know, we kind of worked out it together and laid it out and built it, stretched the car out and lowered it, got it all set up. But it's coming up time for the beginning of the car show season, and there ain't paint in its future. And he and his wife and another couple, they'd gone to a concert in Kalamazoo, and they're talking about the car and so on and so forth. And she said, I told you when I build it, I want it safe. I want glass in it, and I want it flat black. And he just looked at her, and you know, remember the Meatloaf song? 2 out of 3 ain't bad. He said it was quiet for quite a while after that. But so we take it to the car show, and it's the first thing that showed up at that car show. This is 2008 or 9 or something like that. And it's like people are walking by really, really nice cars to make a circle around that car. And so I did that. I built another car, and this is another one of those things. I said, that's cool, gets a lot of attention, people love it. I'll never build one of them. Well, I was working on his car in my shop one day, and this guy walked in, guy I'd known for a long time, and he said, I got a car you got to have. And I said, sure. And he told me, it's a 4-door Model A sedan, but he said it burned up in a fire. But it was a Model A. I got a soft spot for Model A's. And I said, well, what do you want for it? And he says, I don't want to sell it. I figured, really? And he said, well, what you got in mind? He said, I'll trade you something for it. I said, well, what do you want to trade? He says, I don't know. We'll figure it out later. So, okay, so I go over and look at the car, and it is, you know, it's a total mess. It's warped and twisted, and the rims are on it, but the tires are half on it because they burned off. As a matter of fact, the car came from like 3 miles from your shop. So I picked the thing up, ended up going to a swap meet a few days later. I figured I'd just put V8 in it and have it a rat rod and sell it to somebody. I went to this car show, and a guy had a cool old truck sitting there. I figured, hey, this is pretty nice. And I talked to him about it, and he said, well, I just took the motor out of it because it didn't have enough horsepower to move the truck around. And I figured, oh, he said, I'm going to sell it. I didn't even think anything about it until he said, it's got 11,000 miles on it. It's like, wait a minute. It's a flathead 6-cylinder engine, 404 cubic inches, 2 spark plugs per cylinder, 2 ignition systems. And I ended up, making a long story short, I ended up getting the motor. I took it home, and at this point in time, I'd cut everything off of that Model A body. The roof was, I mean, it was all gone. The doors, after it burned up in the fire, they welded them on. I set the motor on the floor. I set the body behind it, and I rolled a couple tires up to where it looked like, and stood back and looked at it and said, this looks like it'll work. And so I ended up putting the car together. It's been on televisions, it's been in shows, it's been in magazines, it's been in everything. I never expected it because...
And that motor you're talking about came out of an old fire truck.
1946 Federal fire truck.
And the old fire trucks, just for a little information, back in the old days, they had 2 ignition systems in them. They had a distributor and a magneto. That way they would run no matter what. They were an emergency vehicle.
Can I correct you?
Okay.
I went to a show, car show, and there was a guy come by and, I was a fireman, I drove a truck like that. And I said, tell me the story about this dual ignition system. And he said, well, a lot of people think, what you said.
Okay.
He said, that's not it. He said, they got a fire to go to, so they accelerator on the floor and they get there. Well, they get there and that truck is going to idle for hours and hours and hours. And it's going to load up. When you get there, you turn the magneto off, which is about 25 degrees advance. It goes back to the distributor, which is running 5 degrees advance with a CJ8 spark plug, a real hot spark plug, so it don't fall out nearly as quick.
Huh. Well, see, we all learned something, because that's what I always thought. I've got a couple old fire trucks, and they got the dual ignition in them, and that's pretty neat. See, you always learn something on these adventures.
Yeah, but that car, I left Michigan first week of January in 6 inches of snow when I got 1.5 inches of ground clearance and drove it to Key West. Going down I-69, it was kind of bad because it had the slushy roots and it was kind of directing you. Once I got past Indianapolis, it wasn't so bad.
Now, that had to have been a little chilly.
Well, they make heated motorcycle rider clothing.
Oh, okay.
You plug it in. I was nice and toasty warm.
Well, that car should have said Mad Max, because I'm sure everybody watching you going down the interstate was thinking, wow.
Got down into Kentucky, and the ice that had frozen to the front of the car, all of a sudden those pieces are flipping and every once in a while going up over the top of the car. And I was like, what's going on here? The shifter in it is a 12-gauge shotgun.
Okay.
The cool thing about rat rods, and they draw a tremendous audience at car shows, is because they're not like anything else, and people are looking, well, what's different on this and what's different on that. That's how the shotgun shifter came along. It's like there's a rule book. If you're going to build a 32 Ford, it better be this and this and this and this, because that's what people expect. The fun thing about rat rods is you have these rules of good taste, and you see how many you can break.
So that's primarily what you're doing now then, right? Just building hot rods and enjoying life.
Yeah, pretty much so.
Good.
Paul Winkleman set me up with a 780 cubic inch inline 6-cylinder Waukesha engine, and I'm building a vehicle around that.
Okay.
The engine transmission is 2,500 pounds. Making a sedan delivery out of it.
Okay. That sounds, I'm sure that will be interesting. Well, hey, I hope all you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. Comment, give us the thumbs up, like us, you know all the stuff. Subscribe, tell your friends, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for watching.